Welcome to the last video on Dominant Seventh Chords, a practice analysis from the book. So, we'll go over to the notation software and it'll tell you about what page you need and stuff. Alright. So, we're on page 233 looking at example 8.5. I've retyped the music from this page into Sibelius so that I can analyze it with the music in front of you, and it'll be visually easier for us if I use the panorama view, which is a way for me to look at all the music at once rather than on two systems like in the music you're looking at. Okay, so I recommend at this point trying to find a nice recording on YouTube of this. Horn player that I would look up would be a guy named by the name of Dennis Brain, B-R-A-I-N, playing this little chunk. I'll find a link at some point for you. Anyway, so take a listen to this before we start analyzing it. Okay, so I assume you've gone and listened to it. If you haven't, some of this will be useless to you, but in the end, here we go. So now the whatever. Don't worry about the empty double bass on the bottom. So the idea is that we need to figure out what to do with the top instrument first. So we've got a horn concerto. Notice it says corno in E flat. Corno is the Italian word for horn. If you think of the word cornucopia, which is horn of plenty, the thing that they stuff crap into for Thanksgiving, that's what they're thinking of, horn, corno. Notice it's in E flat, or the horn we use these days is usually in F, so this is a different transposition than what we're used to. So we're going to need to figure out the transposition so we know what notes they're in so we can analyze it. And then we're looking at the strings that accompany the horn soloist. So we have two sections of violins, violas, and cellos and basses on one line. Notice that this is one line, but it'll sound this plus an octave lower because the basses sound an octave lower than written. So that really in the end won't affect our Roman numeral analysis. So how do we figure out what the horn is playing? In the end, figuring out transposition is something you need to do on your own, but what ends up happening for us is that a horn in E flat sounds a major sixth lower than written. So, in the end, the way I visualize it is looking at this first note, C. The note that's going to come out is the E flat above it, but an octave lower. So the E flat bottom line will be the sounding pitch. So what I would do from here is sit down and actually write in the note names if this is going to cause you trouble. What I'm going to do is pause what I'm doing and I'm going to write in all letter names for all of the notes for the horn part from here to the end to help us as we try to figure out the harmonies. So there we go, we've figured out the pitches for our music. So it just sounds something like this. E flat, A flat, C, C, D flat, E flat, F, D flat, B flat. So there you go, there's the horn notes. Now, for those of you that have trouble, you're also going to want to figure out the notes in the viola in the C clef. So remember that middle line C, where the two little B, it looks like a B, the middle place marks middle C. So this again is also E flat. So I'm going to pause again and let's figure out all the viola notes. Okay, there's all the viola notes. So we have lots of E flats, A flat, F, E flat. Again, a bunch of E flats again. G, A flat, A flat, A flat, E flat, D flat, C. Okay, so we have all of those notes. So we need to make the music happen in logical chunks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to analyze the strings and then figure out if the horn goes with it. Okay, so the beginning we have A flat in the bass, and then E flat, A flat, and C in the upper strings. So we get, okay, so that all sounds like one chord to me that's been repeated. And it is. So we're in A flat major, and that is 1. So let me write that in here. Let's see, there we go. I've put in A flat major, and I'll be even more specific here. A flat major, and I have 1 for the first measure. So now let's look at measure 2. I have a G in the bass, and now I still have E flat, and B flat in the second violin, and D flat in the first violin. So I've got G, E flat, B flat, D flat. And that's not a good snowmorian order, meaning we've got stacked thirds. So it means that I need to figure out which notes on the bottom should be the root. And if I restack them, it should be E flat, G, B flat, D flat. So that's an E flat dominant 7th chord. In A flat major would be 5-7. So I have a 5-7 chord, and I need to figure out what the inversion is, because the root isn't in the bass. So since it's E flat, the next note up would be G, which I have in the bass here, which means that's the third of the chord, first inversion. So I need to put 5, 6, 5 for this measure. And again, this lasts the whole measure through. So a harmonic rhythm of per bar for the first 2 measures. Now let's go up and look on the horn to see if all the notes fit. So in our first measure, we have A flat chord, we have E flat, A flat, C, C. All of those notes are chord tones. We're good. And then for our 5-7, we have D flat, E flat, F, D flat, B flat. So D flat and E flat and the B flat are all chord tones, but the F isn't. Okay, so that is an escape tone being left by leap and approached by step in the opposite direction. You know, you can say that in reverse, so it would make more sense. So let me find my parentheses, and I will label this as an escape tone. There you go. All right, there we go. I've got my first 2 measures. So now notice that these 2 measures repeat in measures 5 and 6. So I will mark them over there as well, including my escape tone. Okay, and I need my parentheses as well. And now I'll take the measure 3. Notice that the speed of our harmony changes has gone much faster from once a measure to now once per quarter note. Okay, so our first beat, you'll see A flat, E flat, A flat, and C. So that's 1 again. Oops, I want this one. A flat, and then we look at the next beat, we have B flat, E flat, G, and D flat. So B flat, E flat, G, and D flat. So this is another E flat dominant 7th chord, but this time we have B flat in the bass, which makes this a second inversion dominant 7th chord, which would make this a 5-4-3 chord. So we've already had 2 different of our inversions, 5-6-5 and 5-4-3. So that keeps going to a C, A flat, C, E flat chord, which is an A flat major triad in first inversion, A flat, C, E flat. So we need 1-6. There we go. So notice that both examples of our 5-7 in root position, 5-7 inversion chords happen like I described in earlier videos. 5-6-5 goes to 1. with T do in the bass, and 5-4-3 goes to either 1 or 1-6. It's actually here being used like a passing 6-4 chord, except it's a 7th chord instead of a triad. So as we keep going, looking at the last beat of this measure, we have D flat, F, B flat, and D flat. That's a B flat minor triad. So we need to call that a 2-6 chord. Minor 2-6. Which then moves to an E flat in the bass. But notice we have A flat, C, and E flat, eighth notes for our half note length here. So this is actually a cadential 6-4 chord, and then which moves to a root position 5 on the downbeat. So right here is a half cadence in measure 4, and you'll see that the melody has a nice pause here on this, and there's a little link going back into a new phrase that begins just like the first phrase did. Okay, so let me put that half cadence in. Alright, so there's my half cadence. Okay, so if we look back here, all of my horn notes fit in all of my chords here. And here from our 5 chord, E flat, G, B flat, this C all the way up, all these 3 notes here are really all 3 of them passing tones from the B flat up to the E flat. So we can mark those like we've done earlier. So notice I'm marking all of them individually. Alright. So now notice we did those 2 measures the same, and now we can analyze the last 2 measures. Alright, so in measure 7 we have E flat, G, B flat, and D flat. So here we have a root position 5 chord, 5-7. Right? Notice that the horn arpeggiates 5-7. E flat, G, B flat, D flat. Okay, and that goes immediately to a root position 1, resolving as we expect. Notice that if we just look at the 4 string parts, that we do get an incomplete triad after our complete dominant 7th chord. Okay. This moves to another 2-6 chord, just like before. With D flat in the bass, we have B flat, D flat. Actually, we have an A flat and an F. So this is actually a 2-6-5. So it's a 7th chord. And then we move to, again, a cadential 6-4 chord. We have A flat, C, and E flat with E flat in the bass. The E flat comes and we get our 5, G, B flat, and D flat, 5-7, and then 1. So let me enter those in. So I've entered the final harmonies I described. Notice the cadential 6-4 in both places leads to a cadence, and we get a perfect authentic cadence at the end with the melody T-do in the horn. So we get our perfect authentic cadence. So take another listen while looking at the harmonies. And make sure you understand how we got all those Roman numerals, how we got the notes in the viola and the horn, and make sure you can follow all of the part writing in the strings that is very similar to how we did everything in the earlier videos, and following all of our part writing we've done beforehand. So you should be ready to be able to practice doing more analysis and more part writing after watching all those videos, and as we work on the homework in class next time.